Meeting in order, it's 7 o'clock. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, first of all, thanks to all of you for coming. I know sometimes it's inconvenient to come this time of night, but we've got a full complement of people here. I'm sure a lot of divergent opinions, and hopefully we learn a lot tonight. The reason we're having this meeting is because the Planning Commission requested that the Board of County Commissioners requested that the Planning Commission pursue the idea of a building code and a fire code for the unincorporated areas of Custer County. And so this is the first step in that process. We're here as an informational meeting. We're an advisory group, so we won't be making any decisions tonight. So what we're really interested in is getting your viewpoints on a building code and a fire code for Custer County. And there's one thing that I'll mention to you that's just come up in the last few days, is the idea that we may not want to go through the process. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. What happens if we were to go to a building code is we would have to amend the Custer County resolution. I don't know exactly if you have a copy of that here, but it's the book that basically regulates land use in Custer County. And so there's a long process. It would probably be about 2 months, July and August, to go through the process. Now there's a new development that's come up, and I just became aware of it in the last couple of days, of the idea of not going through the amendment process, but taking this issue to the ballot in November, putting it on the November ballot and letting all the citizens vote on whether or not they want a building code for Custer County. So I'm going to ask for your input tonight, and for those that speak, I would really like you to also give us your impression of whether we should go to the ballot or whether we should go this other route that I'm talking about, going through the public meetings and that whole process. So, did you have a question, Jeff?
No, absolutely.
Okay. So anyhow, I don't think I covered about everything on that. Now, as far as the rules of conduct, well, first of all, meeting will go from 7 to 9 o'clock. If we don't get done, then we'll call another meeting. But we're not going to go past 7 o'clock. And we're going to have some rules of conduct, and I hope, can everybody see that board up there? I hope you can. First of all the speakers, if you want to say something, please come up to the podium, identify yourself and where you live, your address, and if you have any affiliation. For example, if you represent a homeowners organization or you represent a business that you want to identify. So please do that. And then when you come up here, please talk to the Planning Commission. Don't talk to the rest of the audience. You're trying to get as much information as you can to the Planning Commission. So direct your comments to the Planning Commission. And we don't want any exchange between the speaker and the audience or between individuals in the audience. We want to be respectful, and if you have something to say, then you're going to have an opportunity later on that you might want to comment on what somebody else has said. Now, we're going to limit the initial speaking time to 4 minutes, and Chuck is going to be ruthless about that, and I think Bill's even going to blow a whistle that goes to 4 minutes. On your first comment period, what we're trying to do here is make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. If you want to speak again, once everybody has had the opportunity to speak initially, then we'll give another 2 minutes to speak after that. And what else? I can't read what else we had down here. adjourn meeting at 9.
9 o'clock adjournment.
9 o'clock, okay.
Do you want to take those 2 chairs over and have those 2 people get to sit that are standing outside in the hallway?
Sure.
Hey, Mr. Hutton, will you come get a chair, or do you guys can sit there, or? Okay.
I better sit here, I carried it all the way. The other thing I'll mention is that on the building code, I The other thing I want to mention is what's been proposed for the building code is the International Building Code, the 206 version, and the International Fire Code, also the 206 version. That's what's been proposed at this point in time. With that introduction, I will take comments from the audience. Oh, I forgot. Jackie's going to read, we have had some letters on this issue, and Jackie's going to read those now.
I received 3 letters from Arthur von Boingenhausen, and I believe that all 3 of them are different, and then one from Robert Miller. So I'll start with Robert Miller's first. I'm aware that these 2 subjects have not progressed to the point where our zoning regulation is being considered directly for amendment. But I would like to get ahead of these 2 items before the parties become vested in their relative positions and change in a direction becomes difficult or impossible. I think it's pretty safe to say that no one in agricultural will support these 2 initiatives. I think the reasons are pretty straightforward and can be summarized as unnecessary government interference and unnecessary cost. I think it is also pretty safe to say that the members of the agricultural community are significantly less likely to construct something that is hazardous because, for most part, they were raised with and have been exercising safe construction all their lives. I think we can safely agree that the average non-agricultural homeowner who has lived all their life in the city will significantly less qualified to oversee and make safe construction decisions. Likewise, with light pollution, the agricultural community on average has less disposable income and therefore will inherently be significantly more conservative with the outdoor lighting as opposed to their urban-based neighbors. Additionally, the number of agricultural lights when compared to non-agricultural lights in the county is completely insignificant. I would like to suggest that agricultural lands of 110 contiguous acres or more that contain a simple farmstead be exempt from either of these 2 regulations should either be enacted. Mr. Miller's commenting about the building code and also dark skies. Arthur von Boingenhausen, correct?
Close enough.
Okay. I just read today's Tribune. Yikes. Many of the statements in the recent Tribune articles are simply not correct, as they are not statements from architects, engineers, constructors, or even local realtors. I have had a Colorado real estate license since 2001. Each time we sell a residential home, we have an inspection performed. I read all these written reports with pictures, and I have never seen an inspection on a residential home that says something like, because this home does not meet the standards of the Uniform Building Code, there are problems that need attention. On commercial buildings, we have them scrutinized by a professional engineer who is also a building inspector. We do not see any comments in the reports that a mandatory UBC would make things better. Just because you have a copy of the UBC on your desk does not guarantee you are able to successfully organize the labor and materials to construct a residential home, nor does it mean you are able to come in under budget and on schedule. Carefully following the UBC does not guarantee you will have a beautiful residential home with curb appeal. The Frankenstein monster worked perfectly and lived for 100 years, but looked really bad. The last time these ideas came up, they were promoted by a group of people hoping to be paid to bring a residential home up to code. Every time the property changed hands, this would bring the sale of a residential home in Custer County to a virtual standstill. Real estate sales and residential construction are the foundation of the already weak economy in Custer County and far surpass the revenues from commercial endeavors like ranching. Suppressing real estate sales while we have meetings on economic development really make me wonder about the political leadership in Custer County. I had to laugh to read Jordan Hedberg's interview with some of the most notorious builders who ever lived in Custer County. Ha ha, look here. Custer County Planning and Zoning does not have the education, experience, or skill set to have any say in this. They are not architects, engineers, or constructors, and neither is Jay Printz. These ideas will simply suppress the real estate sales in Custer County, Colorado, which are at an all-time high since 2008, thanks to the efforts of the people like Arthur von Boygenhausen. What can you people be thinking? Oh, no.
Oh.
This is 4 minutes. Do you want him to just have 4 minutes?
What about 4 minutes on him?
Okay, let's just say the rest is about the same. Okay. That's good.
Okay, one other comment I'll make is we have two county commissioners here present, but they're not here in official capacity. This is just a meeting of the planning commission. And even though on the agenda, I think people have copies of the agenda, indicates commissioner comments, I think that's unlikely. So with that, I'll want Cindy.
I asked if I could come up and speak first because I got up at 1:30 and went out on a search and rescue mission at 2 a.m. and got back about 5 o'clock and I'm ready to go home and go to bed.
Name and address.
Cindy Howard, 856 County Road 260, West Cliff. I am the Custer County Emergency Manager. I've been in the position for 17 months. And what I'd like to talk to you about a little bit in terms of building codes is just to introduce to you the hazard mitigation plan, which was a grant-funded project that was already under development when I took the position. I didn't write the grant, I didn't select the contractor, I didn't start the steering committee, I didn't advertise for folks to join, although it was open to the entire public. But it's a 506-page document. It's available on CusterCountyGov.com, and it was adopted by the towns of Silver Cliff, West Cliff, and Custer County. I believe it was February 5th, 6th, and 7th, and formally FEMA adopted. Part of the annual review process is to update where we're at on some of the goals, and that'll be an annual process, and then in 5 years, we'll have to rewrite it. My understanding is one of the reasons that the county wrote the hazard mitigation plan is because if you don't have a hazard mitigation plan in place, it's harder to get public assistance funding through FEMA. So if Wetmore gets wiped out by a flood and we qualified, if we didn't have this plan, we wouldn't get that. Those are things, I'm new to the job, I'm still learning, but I wanted you to know a little bit about the process. It's, like I said, it's online, it shows the entire process. But the county and both towns participated, and you had to rank all your high risks. And so obviously for Custer County, it was wildfire and wind, and then winter storm and hail damage. And so some of the mitigation goals for every high hazard event or threat that you had identified, you had to come up with, as the steering committee, 3 actions to try to work towards reducing those risks. And in Custer County, I won't speak to the West Cliff, Silver Cliff side, but in Custer County, the #1 ranked project. And again, this isn't me, so I just want to share with you what was done. But on table 20-8, For Custer County, the mitigation action ranking number 1 is to adopt consistent IBC, IRC building codes countywide to include both townships. And the description is towns of Silver Cliff, West Cliff, and Custer County governing boards to adopt revised codes to a common standard and to establish a shared position for inspections and enforcement via MOUs or intergovernmental agreements. So that committee felt that, 4,500 population, it wasn't going to be 3 positions or a bunch of part-time positions, that if this ever was adopted as a short-term goal, that it would be a single office. And then as you go through the plan, there's other goals, and they are tied to some of the other threats. A lot of it's education, and I'm not here to advocate for building codes or not. I just want to present this. I'm probably late coming to the Planning Commission. I'd probably like to come talk to you some more about this, talk to you some about firewise and ready, set, go. I really see, fire mitigation and maybe some fire-resistant building and definitely some mitigation as actions that we can take. So my door's open, my phone is ringing. Feel free to call me, and thank you for your time.
And this would be online for everyone to see?
This is online now.
Okay, and it's under your OEM page?
I believe it's on the OEM page.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe it's on the OEM page. So I didn't bring cards with me tonight, but I would like to talk to anybody who has questions, but dig through it. I think I'm the only one who's read all 506 pages. Thanks, have a good night. Jack, you read a lot. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Glenn Langford. I've been in Custer County for over 40 years now in private forest practice. My business is Greenleaf Forestry and Wood Products out on Rosita Road. I wrote a letter to the editor just last week and to the Custer County Commissioners and failed to send it directly to you. So I think just like Arthur got his read, I could read mine because it's pretty clear. The topic of building codes has been brought up again by Commissioner Jay Printz. Apparently Cindy Howard, the Office of Emergency Management, discovered federal flood insurance may not be available in Wetmore due to lack of building codes. Commissioner Printz says he is interested in safety. The local contractor, Brian Woods, says the code will help level the playing field. 10 years ago, I served on a committee appointed by the commissioners for 18 months to study the building code. 6 other community members, including Dallas Anderson, who's behind me here, was on the committee. A couple, I'm afraid, are deceased in this last 10 years. We surveyed other counties for input. We did a survey of zoning permits for the previous 5 years, got a really good response rate of 90%, indicating very low rate of problems with structures. There were no identified significant or common causes of health, safety, or quality issues with structures. The most common problem that was identified in that survey was with the contractors themselves. That was, they didn't show up, they took the money and ran, all kinds of weird things. But generally, if the structure got built, it was built to acceptable standards. So in a public meeting, further discussion on July 6, 2010, the commissioners decided against building codes. The minutes of that meeting, which I have copies of, I'd like to hand them to you or copy to you later, show that exactly what we're going through now is relevant and was then is the same conditions. So we have a lot of other problems in Custer County that are more significant to safety. The biggest one that I know about personally as a forester and living in the San Luis Cristo is fire hazard. If we were ever to develop a code, I'm not really suggesting this, but I'm saying it's more important and would affect many more people to have requirements for defensible space around their homes and so forth. The structure themselves, these structures have been, some of them here, 100 years, and are still standing, and many of them are in Westcliff, by the way. Maybe Jay Printz even owns one. But that's not the problem. The biggest problem that we have, from my perspective, is the overwhelming problem of fire. It's happening in Utah, Arizona, right now. We're seeing the smoke. We just put our heads in the sand and forget about that. So I urge the county to address that rather than building codes. We don't need a building code. We need education, yes, of the contractors and the people who get zoning permits, so they put in chimneys correctly. That would be one safety issue I know about. But the rest of it is really more of too much government regulation, in my opinion, and I urge you not to vote for building codes.
Your time's up.
Time's up.
Dallas?
Oh, thank you for letting me be here. My name's Dallas Anderson. I live on Boone Avenue in Boneyard Park. I've lived here since 2003 this time. I have history in the county from 1948. So here we go. The last time this came up was in 2008. The city commissioners at that time formed a committee. They called us the Building Code Committee. I served on that committee. Like Len said, we surveyed 25% of the counties surrounding us. We found out that 25% of the counties in the state do not have a building code. We heard horror stories from counties like Huerfano that the building code had caused them nothing but terrible troubles, increased the building time by almost a fourth in some cases, increased the building costs significantly. On the committee I served on, we sent out 500 questionnaires to the last 500 zoning permits that we could find on record. We got back 14% of those questionnaires, and at that time the national standard for receiving back questionnaires was 5%. So we thought we did pretty well. Like Lynn said, we had one, as I remember, questionnaire that had a complaint with the building quality of their house. All the others were happy with the quality of their building, but there was a huge amount of feedback about contractors. A lot of them said contractors would not show up when they said they would. They would show up, stay an hour or so, and then leave, not be back for a week or more. And so the conclusion was that there was not a problem with building quality. The problem was with contractors and their method of doing business. I'm against the building code in the county because of alternative building materials. One house that I can think of really right away is a straw bale house that was built on Copper Gulch Road. I suspect that if the building code had been in effect when he started with that house, he would still be wading through piles of paperwork trying to get an approval for one of the finest houses that was ever built in the county, as far as I'm concerned. So that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dallas. Yes, sir.
My name is James Johnson. I live at 500 Brittany Road, and I haven't been around as long as many other people. I know that there was a letter earlier that talked about people that come from the east or metropolitan areas, and I actually lived a lot of my life in Eagle County, so I don't take offense to that. I also don't think that all government or all regulations are bad. I used to be a county commissioner, and I've done regulations, but when I did them in a way that I took the community into thought. So there's some questions that I'd like for y'all to ask yourselves as you're going through this. What are the issues that these codes are meant to address? How long will it take to adopt these? Also, what does the existing international code view new and innovative construction such as straw bale? How is that viewed within those codes, and what would it do to people who want to build like that here? How much additional cost will it add per square foot for each residential unit that's being built? Also, how will this affect affordable housing in our area? And also, how will it affect the local economy? Can the codes be adopted so that they're voluntary or opt-in for people who believe that the homes will be worth more if they are built to these codes, where other people who say, you know what, I want to live here for the rest of my life, and I want to build with alternative materials, will they be able to say, hey, this isn't for me? Also, if this is to protect everyone in the county, does that mean that the codes would be retroactive, and so everything that has already previously been built would have to be brought up to code also? Or does it just have to be brought up to code once it's being transferred? Also, would the properties that were transferred prior to the adoption of these codes be grandfathered in? Because many people bought their properties knowing what Custer County was and what the building regulations were when they purchased the properties. And then also, who are the winners and losers? I know that in reading one of the articles that there were representatives from several industries that spoke about how good the codes would be. But also when you look at, because the codes would exclude some people from building, who wins when that happens? You know, it's typically people that have licenses that want other people to not partake in the same business that they are. You know, bankers, finance charges go up, they make money. Realtors make money because they get the same percentage but on a higher monetary value. Also, who's liable if something goes wrong? If the codes are adopted and they're inspected, are we, the taxpayers, on the hook because the county screwed up? Or is it the builder that did it, 10 years down the road? And then also, as far as taking it to the vote of the people in Custer County, are we talking about everyone in Custer County, or are we just talking about the people whose properties would be affected by the vote? And then lastly, as far as whether I think that it should be taken to a vote of the people, I think that I would really prefer that, and don't get me wrong, I have great faith in voters. They elected me twice, so they're pretty darn smart. However, if they don't have as much information as the Planning Commission can have by going out and actually researching this, will they be able to make a good decision? Thank you.
Thank you, James.
James, I forgot your last name.
Johnson.
Too easy.
Too easy.
And one thing, obviously you dealt with it before, James, and I was just made aware of this idea of going on the ballot there, so we would there'd probably have to be something done regarding the incorporated towns versus the unincorporated areas. And then some of your questions there, likely if we would go through this whole process, then we would have workshops where we would discuss those details you're talking about.
Sounds perfect. And then also, when you're talking about going to the election, would it be residents of Custer County, or would it be property owners of Custer County? Because some people aren't registered to vote here, but they own property here and they would be affected as well.
That's where you get in the hard
Right.
thing, because it would be only for the unincorporated part, but not everyone has a home here, they just have property here, so
Right.
that's where they get eliminated. So, yeah, there's still a lot of figuring out to do. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Next question. Next speaker, please. I'm sure. Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Jason Connor. I'm a resident 8441 Highway 96 in the county. The reason my family came here was because we wanted to get away from the building codes in Fremont County. We were contractors there and we dealt with Fremont County on a day-to-day basis. So I understand the challenges that go along with having a very bureaucratic building department. I don't think Custer County would be as bureaucratic as what Fremont County was, but I think it would eventually get there. I'd like to detail the process and the costs that went along with building a new residence in Fremont County, because Mr. Printz indicated that it would only add about $1,000 to the cost of construction, and that's completely untrue. By the time you figure in engineering costs, higher building permit costs, and time delays, you're looking at somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. And as far as time goes, the process of getting engineered plans, that's one of your big costs. You have to now pay an engineer to draw your plans, have a state stamp on them, same with your septic system. And by the time you do all that, like I said, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 in additional costs, as well as 3 to 4 months extended in your time. By the time you apply for a permit, get the engineered plans, and wait for inspections, that's the timeline you're looking at. And I only say that because I watched it. I've seen it, and that's why we came here. We came here because Custer County didn't have a building code. And when you think about the time involved in it, like I said, generally, a building inspection process takes 10 inspections. You've got a footer forms inspection, a stem wall inspection, an electrical rough-in, an electrical final, a framing inspection, a plumbing rough-in and final, an insulation inspection, a sheetrock inspection, and a structural final inspection. That's 10 altogether. And if you have to wait anywhere from 3 to 4 days for each inspection, you're talking about 30 days lost construction time. So that's something to think about. And as far as the issue goes of who should make the decision, it would be my recommendation that you put it on the ballot. If the citizens of Custer County approved a building code in unison, I would say good deal. But I really think this is too big of an issue for just the county commissioners to decide. So I just wanted to bring all that to your attention so you would understand what goes into a bureaucratic building code process and what it's actually going to cost the consumers in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else for to speak?
Excuse me, but you're on the wrong side of the podium.
Does this work?
No.
Tanner Camper, I live in the bottom of the valley, and I voted for Republicans for this county because of limited government. And this isn't limited government, it's just more in our lives. So it's short and sweet, but I'm all about limited government, and this is not limited government.
Dan, did you have a question? Or you want to speak?
My name is Dan Fox, live on County Road 192 in northern part of the county. The biggest question is, how does the county pay for this? Where does the funding come to pay for the inspectors, to pay for the administration, to pay for issues that may arise, and where do those dollars come from? to fund this project that we're looking at here, of having the building code. And I think the voters should have a say in this issue. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Somebody else must have something to say. Dan?
So my name is Dan Hubis. For those of you who know me, and some of you do, you know 4 minutes is easy for me, but I'll hold it down to a minimum. Address is 182, County Road 182. Got my actual address? No. So just a point of clarification. The original reason that I wrote the first hazard mitigation plan was not for any other reason than if we didn't have it, OEM would not be funded. That was the entire reason. So I have a few numbers for you because numbers are important. From 2001 to 2015, the county grew by 734 people. 200 of those people moved into the towns. That means in 15 years, we had 548 people move into the unincorporated county. Now, I know math is hard, but that average is, let's round up by a lot, 40 people a year. 40 people, say the average is 2 people per family. That's 20 houses being built from scratch every year. And that's going to fund a position that's costing you $100,000 a year. By the time you figure salaries, insurance, all those benefits, a vehicle, gas, the lawsuits, easily $100,000. I encourage you to put the kibosh on this pretty quick. I trust the voters, but I don't know that it would make it to the ballot correctly. There's already a lot of misstatements. For example, the statement that, if you have a building code, you can get flood insurance. Well, if that were true, the town would have flood insurance. And if that were true, then the clinics wouldn't have built in a flood zone and been flooded the year after they were built, because they had a building code. I'm sorry, but the building code is not going to help you with flood insurance. If you want to have flood insurance, you become a FEMA participating county, and you pay your fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Jay Printz, Commissioner, District 2. I did bring this forward, and I really appreciate the Planning and Zoning Commission in thinking about this issue. I recognize it was brought up several years ago, and it was defeated. What really brought this to my attention and why I decided I felt it was necessary to bring this up again were a couple of things. One was the flood potential in Wetmore. The folks, because of the Junction Loops fire, there was a real threat and remains a real threat for flooding down in Wetmore. The water will roll down, there's nothing to stop it. We heard from many people in Wetmore who said, they called their regular insurer who said, because we don't have a building code, FEMA is not, you can't be a member of FEMA. Without being a member of FEMA, FEMA underwrites the majority of flood insurance. It is true you can buy it from Lloyd's of London without a FEMA underwriting, but it's very expensive. So that kind of got me thinking about it. I also thought about the Junkins fire when the fire started, when a shed blew over, took down a power line, which sparked the fire, and that's what started it. Now, I will not say if we had a building code and that structure was built to building, this would not have happened. I do not know. I will not profess that. But I worry about those things. But what really got me thinking about this was people who move into a house that's already built. And they look at walls like these and they go, I love the house. I want to move into it. But what they don't know is what's behind the wall. Are the studs put in properly? Are they anchored properly? We've had several roofs that post roofs blew off, and the insurance companies looked at those and said, well, they never had hurricane anchors, something that we need with our 60 and 80 mile an hour winds. Had we had a building inspector go out there, the building inspector would have said, that doesn't fly, put the anchors in. I worry about the slabs. When a slab freezes and defrosts over a number of years, they crack much sooner if they're not the right thickness. So I worry about that. I worry about the fire code. I went into a house not long ago, and the people were building it themselves, and they put their wood-burning stove up against the wall without any insulation. Definite fire hazard. Had an inspector looked at it, they would have said, no way. I grant you, people are responsible for their own actions, and if they want to burn themselves down or hurt themselves, I guess that's their business, but I really worry about the next generation. You die off, someone inherits that house, or you sell it. Who's looked at this house? Is this house okay? I'm fine, and I mentioned to Vic, it doesn't really matter what I think, but I think if you came in with the minimal building code, that's the 2006 building code and the 2006 fire code, just for homes. I know the homes are safe. Someone's looked at it to make sure that crazy things weren't done, that someone built that either did shortcuts or didn't know how to build. Someone looked at it. I know an inspector would look at it. As far as the cost, I appreciate the gentleman in the back saying it's going to be $20,000. I don't know where this came from. I did my homework before I brought this to you. It's $8,000 to $1,000. Engineering costs are not included in this. All the inspector does is go out 6 to 8 times and look at it as it's being built to make sure that it meets the code. It could be more if they find errors and they make the builder redo it, fix what's wrong. They got to go out, there'll be another expense to that. And who pays for that? The answer is the homeowner pays for it. When you figure the average house in Custer County is $200,000, we're looking at $1,000 as 1/2 of 1% additional cost. I personally feel that's appropriate expense for the safety of the people who are not just building for themselves, but future generations that move into that house. I see my time is up, but I appreciate it. And I really am in favor of no government, but when we look at safety versus shortcuts, that's my job, is to worry about safety. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. Further comments?
There's a gentleman right here.
I thought I'd give a little bit of applause. I'm a Republican as well. But that doesn't...
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tim Stodola, 350 Panorama Drive out in East Cliff.
What, your name again?
Tim Stodola.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I said I'm a Republican, but I'm not against safety. We've owned the property out here since 1983. When we finally decided to come out here, we said, let's look. Rather than build a house, there's so many properties for sale, let's look. Well, having been in the building industry years ago, we looked and looked and looked, and I was like, what the hell were these people thinking when they built this place? We finally decided to build on our property because we couldn't get a loan for homes, or we would have had to pay an exorbitant down payment to get a loan to move into one of these existing homes that were shoddily built. We were able to get a building loan through our bank based on the fact that the house would be built to the existing codes at the time. It helped our builder out because the bank sent the inspector out. As soon as each stage was inspected, our builder got paid, which is not what happens sometimes when somebody comes out and wants to pay cash, have their builder build the house. Sometimes they hold off on the builder. Builder doesn't pay his employees. They go somewhere else. If somebody, a new homeowner wants to come in, a young couple, first-time home buyer, FHA is really tough. VA is even tougher, because I've bought several homes on VA loans. They're extremely tough to get a loan if the house is not built to code. So having basic codes just protects people
like Jay said, the next generation, but also my property values and everybody else's property values. You know, if you have cash, you can build whatever the heck you want. You can buy whatever you want if you have cash, you know. You can buy an outhouse and live in it if you want, because you can pay cash. But if you want to get a loan, a first-time home buyer, a veteran comes out, wants to get a loan, wants to live out here in this pristine area, if he doesn't have cash to pay for it, he might not be able to get a loan. It's pretty simple. I mean, there's nothing wrong with basic safety standards in home building. Yeah, a lot of the homes out here have been built the turn of the last century, and that's what it is. I imagine there's going to be some, some grandfathering in. You know, not everything's going to be retroactive. Not everybody's going to have to all of a sudden bring the house up to code. But was the house built with 16-inch center studs? Were they built 24 inches and drywalled over? I came from Florida where hurricane, rip roofs off all the time. You don't have hurricane straps on. We have higher winds here on a regular basis than we did hurricanes in Florida my entire life down there. So I'm just saying, basic codes are not a bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Other comments? Jason, can you do it in 2 minutes?
Yep, I can do it in 2 minutes. I want to use my other 2 minutes. I just wanted to come up for a minute and rebuff Mr. Prince's comment that it would only cost $800 to $1,000 in additional cost. He may be a pretty good pawnbroker, and I don't know what kind of a lawyer he is, but I can tell you right now he doesn't know squat about building. We have built houses, and I know the additional costs. And between the time lost and 2 to 3 months time lost, engineering fees alone will cost you over $2,000. And there is, the time lost is where your big money is. And by the time you figure in time lost, all the inspections, all the engineering fees, you will add $15,000 to $20,000 to your building cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. James.
And I'll do it in less than 2 minutes as well. First of all, everyone's saying that they're a Republican. I'm not a Republican, but I had a lot of Republicans vote for me, so I just want to, full disclosure. One of the things that I heard was that, that Junkins fire was started because a shed blew into a power line. So are we talking that if you do a tough shed now, you're going to have to live within the building code also? One of the things that you can't legislate is stupidity. And, just because you have rules and regulations doesn't mean that people aren't going to continue to do stupid things, because, they just do. Also, I find it surprising that people say, well, your property values will go up. And one thing that I do know is that if my property values go up, my property taxes go up. And I'm not all that hip on, I don't mind paying my taxes, but I don't want to pay more than I need to. And I think that a lot of us move to Custer County, you can look around the room, and none of us are cookie cutter. And none of us probably want to have the cookie cutter houses that you see in metropolitan areas. And that's why we moved here, was because there is a bit of freedom here to be able to be who you are and be able to do a lot of things that you want to do to be able to improve yourself, your community, and your property. And so I think that, a cookie cutter building code just won't fit well in Custer County.
Thank you, James. John.
Is anyone surprised? I'm going to read mine, so let me put on my glasses.
Name and address.
John Johnston, 410 Main Street, West Cliff, Colorado, and my affiliation is unaffiliated. I don't sway to either side.
Not asking.
You go, Bill. The BOCC wants to protect us by slaying dragons and monsters lurking under the dark skies of our bedrooms. On May the 31st, Mr. Printz said, and this is a quote, "There will be some people that will not be able to live in our county." Are there any of you?
Excuse me, give the whole quote if you're going to do that, my friend. If you're going to attack me like that, give the whole quote. The quote said, people in cardboard shells will not be allowed to live here. That's what the quote said. Say the whole thing.
Could you start my time over?
Mr. Johnson's clock, please.
You have 2 minutes if you want to respond.
Thank you. So, are any of you members of ISIS from Syria? How about the TSA from Flavor? He's serious.
Let John talk, please.
A civil rights attorney, Teresa Seibel, thinks that there was coercion on the part of Mr. Prince's attempt to move Mr. Roy Dickens from this town. I moved here in 1999. For 4 years, I wanted to become the biggest and best real estate company in this area. I had 5 agents working for me, and I thought I was on the road to success. One day, a local rancher walked into our office with his granddaughter, not sure of the relationship, but he was there to protect her from this foreigner. During the next 15 minutes, she called me Mr. Johnston 3 times, and each time I mentioned she could call me John. The last time he responded, no, she couldn't. It was at that moment I realized I knew very little about this community. I was still an outsider. Within 6 months, I went from an office with 5 agents to becoming a 1-person office with my former goals, just something of the past. It became important to me to learn about the local culture, something I challenged a couple of our commissioners to learn, local culture. I left my big city ways in the dust of the county roads. I changed to adapt to my new environment. How many people come here wanting to recreate the life where they left? That makes about as much sense to me as visiting Paris and demanding they speak English. This isn't France, this is Custer County, and many of us are proud of who we are.
Codes?
Health insurance, healthcare, insurance, taxes, fees, permits, drugs, food, clothing, shelter, nothing is getting cheaper, and no one on a limited income can easily afford an increase in cost of living. In Custer County, we will see an increase in the fees, Round Mountain water and sanitation charges to help pay for a new sewer treatment plant. Donna Hurd has asked every department to look at increasing their fees. Expect to pay more at the landfill. Every time something is new and improved, it costs more for less. The state of Colorado regulates wells, electric, and plumbing. The counties regulate septic systems. The state has not adopted the building code, and nor should we. You can get fined for speeding, DWI, DUI, and murals. You pay fees for license plates, building permits, landfill fees, sales tax, license fees to open a business, hunting, fishing license, and gasoline tax, blah, 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 blah. Are you willing to deduct from your limited income another fee for a building inspection? If the BOCC wants to implement a fine for violating the new dark skies ordinance, you can expect the other 4 senses to be fined too. When will the BOCC start trespassing on your property to control noxious weeds? Forgive me for saying this. How about we start requiring every vehicle to have inspection stickers? The county could get another $50 a year for every vehicle in Custer County. And don't forget the Amish buggies. For the wealthy to wish the cardboard box people to disappear, well, they are looking at the waiters and waitresses, the cooks, store employees, mechanics, and yes, the school teachers teaching their children. They could do like Aspen and bust the workers from Florence and Walsenburg to keep the cardboard trash out of here. One of the fastest ways to destroy a community is by the wealthy eliminating the service people. The BOCC hides behind health and safety, hinting we should be scared not to have their health. We are the government, and we are here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other comments? That's right.
Doug McLean, 413 South 2nd Street, and I work with Sky Ranch Horn Creek up on the hill there. A lot of what we've talked about tonight has been residential stuff, and I think there's cost associated to commercial building codes as well, and with IBC 2006. And so just thinking through some of the ramifications of that, I'm very much a proponent of ownership of what you're doing and thinking through things and going about things smart. When we purchased Horn Creek from Horn Creek Conference Grounds, we hired engineers to look at buildings, evaluate things. As the VP of Operations for Horn Creek, I'm looking at significant investments in that property to help the economic growth in this community. And one of those things with the 2006 IBC and fire codes is fire suppression for some of the people that are in my classification for commercial building codes. It's my understanding as well as if we wanted to remodel the courthouse, fire suppression would need to be added into that as a remodel. And I could be wrong, but I know from other facilities that I've run, that is also what's going to happen up at Horn Creek. If we try to remodel the lodge, I'm looking at trying to remodel 13 cabins this next year, a lot of whom I'm trying to use contractors in the valley to pay and use some of those monies inside the county to help the economic development. I also put upon myself to hire worthwhile contractors that are going to do that work. The problem that I foresee in having to do some construction at Horn Creek is being required to have a water storage tank to have water suppression. And if I'm required to have a 100,000 gallon storage tank of dead storage in case I have a fire, I have to balance those with my insurance costs versus the cost of construction and what am I willing to pay. Is there other exceptions and variances that as you guys move forward? If this were to be approved, I'd love for you to consider multiple things. One, is there a way that you'll supply water to the county for fire suppression? Two would be then variances on building materials or other types of variances that would allow us to not be cost prohibitive, and whether that's a percentage of construction or whatnot. Would love for you to consider that as you move forward. Three would just be that and I don't remember what 3 was, so sorry, I appreciate the time, so thanks.
Thank you. Additional comments? Yeah.
2 minutes. Okay, so I'd like to thank Mr. Stadola for making the case against building codes. I know he thinks he made it for building codes, but his house is built to code, was inspected, that's how we got funding, it's how the builder got paid. Somehow or other, there wasn't an ordinance required. Government wasn't required. It all got done by private industry. Second of all, if you're going to get fire insurance on your house, you're going to have an inspector come out and verify that your wood heat, whether that's a stove, chimney, whatever, actually is safe. Because insurance companies don't like to insure places that will burn down easily. It doesn't make money for them. My experience, especially from when I was working in the zoning office, but more so when I was in Florida as a code enforcement, is that building codes allow building to the lowest common denominator and give poor builders an out. Now, there are some good builders that still support building codes. We always built way, way above any code.
Further comment? Now, let me take a moment here. Maybe you can think of some questions you might know. Go ahead.
Candy St. Joe in rural Westcliff. I would just ask you to please let the voters decide. I think between now and if it does go on the ballot, there will be a lot of information put out. I don't believe that all voters are ignorant. I believe that most everybody here has purchased a home or has some idea what is being discussed. And I know our vendor didn't talk to us at all about, or our insurance didn't talk to us at all about lowering our rates based on how our home was built, nor have they ever. So I know there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of different lenders, a lot of different insurance companies. There's people here who have no insurance, who haven't mitigated their property. I do agree that fire is an issue. People don't mitigate their properties, fire starts, and then that's bad for all of us. I would encourage you to have a mitigation, before you do building code, have a mitigation plan that you put in some kind of ordinance for, because that's what keeps all of us safe, more so than a building code that's going to increase the cost. And I would ask you as well to consider the increased cost to build a home with all of the inspections. And I do agree with James. I was going to read his Facebook information that he shared, that if it costs more to build a home, where is that with drawing people in? How is this going to be any different than somebody trying to build a home on the outskirts of a city or in a city? It's not going to be any different. Why would they want to come here if it's going to cost more to build a house? It doesn't make sense, especially for the economic development that you're hoping to bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
John.
Who did you have, Jackie?
John Johnston.
Oh, John, did you want to speak again?
I'll take 2 minutes.
Okay, then Dallas, get you ready. Is that okay?
Okay. It won't be 2 minutes. One of the problems that, you know my name and all that, we don't need that again. One of the problems that we've got, that I think that this is where I draw my respect for this board, this commission. Many people that have bought land here don't live here. They have a dream, they want to build something that they may or may not meet code, I don't care. But simply, they are not voters. I defer to your expertise. I really think that instead of this going to voters, because people that really would want to have a vote don't. I defer to your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Dallas.
Okay. Thank you again. This was a discussion of building codes, but since it was brought up, I'm going to speak to flood insurance. I spent the last 3 days researching flood insurance because of something Wetmore resident said to me. I found out that flood insurance and building codes have nothing to do with each other. Nowhere on the NFIP website or on the emergency FEMA, yeah. Neither one of those websites mentions anything about building codes to acquire flood insurance. The reason that you cannot get flood insurance in Custer County is, number one, the FEMA has not mapped the county. Number two, the county has to belong to the NFIP before flood insurance can be purchased for any house in the county. Therefore, flood insurance, sure you can't get it because there's no flood map from FEMA and the county does not belong to the NFIP. And here's a little shocking thing I found out. The NFIP program expires September 30 this year. And so far, Congress has not had any hearings. It has not been mentioned in open session at all. It looks pretty much like the NFIP program is going to collapse into nothing. And then the flood insurance will certainly not exist for the United States.
Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate your homework. You only get 1 minute. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Jay Printz again. Flood insurance, you would think, is probably not a big problem up here. I mean, we live in high desert. The likelihood of a flood coming through is pretty slim. And I never thought much about it until we had this Wetmore issue. And I've looked into this, and Dallas is correct in terms of a lot of what he said. But here's where the truth really lies. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, underwrites almost all domestic insurers for flood insurance because flood insurance is so expensive. FEMA will not do that unless the county has a building code. Is this enough to give a building code? I don't know. I mean, that's a decision for you to bring to us, let the voters make that vote. This gentleman's shaking his head no, so he is opposed to it. But I understand that, you know, and there's two sides to every issue. But I do want to explain that flood insurance, you can buy it from Lloyd's of London, which is not an American company. They charge a lot, you can buy it. And there are some people in Wetmore that did buy Lloyd's of London insurance, but when they went to their regular insurers, domestic insurers, they were told, we don't even offer it because FEMA's not underwriting us, and you can only get FEMA underwriting if you have a building code. So I just wanted to clear that one issue up. I thank you.
Tanner? I'll go the right way this time. 1862 County Road 170.
Thank you, I always wanted to know where you lived.
And I don't want to just throw out talking points, but there has to be some personal responsibility. It's short and sweet, but it's the truth. If you build your house right next to a creek and it floods, I'm sorry, I really feel really bad that they bought that house next to the creek, but it wasn't my decision. It was their decision. And now they can't get flood insurance, and I'm sorry about that too. But you can put money away or do something. It doesn't affect me. It shouldn't affect me. I'm sorry for them, and I'll go help them pack sandbags if it's going to flood. But why should the rest of us be responsible for someone that built their house on a creek bank? Also personal responsibility. Somebody brought up the younger generations. Well, are we going to coddle them from cradle to grave? Is that what we're supposed to do? Because if I have children, I want them to be strong and make good decisions when they walk into a house and see mold running down the wall, to not buy that house. Or maybe knock a chunk of the drywall out. Or there's a million different things you can do to look to see how far the studs are apart. Make a stud finder now that goes beep, 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 beep right across the wall. There's a million ways to check those things out. And like me, I bought a house that was built in 1894. I guarantee you it wasn't code. It never will be code. You have to tear the whole house down. It's sitting on rocks. And this is just one step closer. In my mind, you just start easing in on people, and then it's, oh no, we're not going to, those aren't grandfathered in. Now we're going to make sure that you do tear that house down and put a proper foundation or mud jacket or whatever else. So, like I said, not just to throw out talking points, but we got to take some personal responsibility, and I'll leave you alone, leave me alone. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Wendy Montgomery, Music Mountain Drive, rural, Custer County. I live in Antelope Valley. I am very proud to be a resident of this county. I lived here before in the 90s. I enjoyed it immensely. I moved away based on some health and personal issues with my husband, and very sad, a lot of tears shed. And I had the opportunity to meet a wonderful man, and we decided we had a common dream. And I said, have you ever heard of Custer County and Westcliff? And it's not on the way to any place, so he hadn't seen it. He came in, and he fell in love with it too. So my background is, when I lived here before, I was a real estate broker. I take pride in the fact that I worked with our county offices here. I had plat maps, I surveyed everything, and I helped folks come into the county who were from out of the area who didn't know what it looked like in the winter, who didn't know what a north-facing slope was, who didn't know what some of the fire mitigation issues were. And so I prided myself on what we do is we educate and we help and we come alongside. And I believe that that is what the folks of this county really believe in. It's community. When we're talking about somebody that's built next to the creek and we're going to help them pack their sandbags, I bet you place one phone call and you'll have 50 people there. That's what this county's about. So it saddened me when I've seen some of these things on Facebook. It seems very divisive because people have very strong opinions about this. And I am all for very safe housing. So beyond being a broker, I also was a contractor. And we were licensed and bonded, and we built log homes. And they were engineered stamped, and we bought the materials from out east because they were kiln dried and they did not twist and warp. And so people did not have walls that split open, things like that. So we used licensed bonded carpenters and electricians and plumbers and such when we did that then. And I very much strongly believe in that safety of a home. At the same time, I don't believe everyone has to be regulated to follow government regulation. I believe that just like some folks have said, there's a common sense about it, and you cannot regulate stupidity. When I moved back into the county, I built an alternative home. John and I wanted to build an earthship. We actually packed tires. We took 800 plus tires that were sitting in a field in Custer County as a nuisance, and they are now my walls. And I took a sabbatical and packed the dirt in those. We also, though, we have engineered trusses, they have hurricane clips, we did all of our own plumbing and electrical, we got our state inspections, which I believe in having your electrical and your plumbing. We passed the first time on both of them. And when you are smart and common sense, you can do that. What we need to do is for our county offices to have the materials available, so if somebody wants to do this themselves, owner builders can come in and get the education and the support to do what they need to make a safe home. So what I would recommend is that we have some basic standards and such that we can share with folks versus having regulation. Because when we were looking at a home in Teller, to build a home in Teller or in Chaffee, the $800 for inspections is probably accurate. The $24,000 for an engineering study to prove that the tires would not change temperature, or the 4 months delay for us to be able to start our home in a 5-month building window, those are the things that we have to take into account as well. And I'm getting close to, so I would just say, please do not put a building code in place, but I would ask you to look further into fire suppression, because that is something that really affects all of our health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? One thing I might do, if you want to give people an opportunity to think about this process we're in, I kind of skimmed over at the beginning. As I mentioned, this is an informational meeting right now, and then we will have on July 11th, the Planning Commission will have a regular meeting, and if we continue on this path, then we will probably schedule a public hearing in which we will make a decision, and that will require 2 weeks public notice. So we're up at July 21, and then probably in our August 1 meeting that we will have a public hearing, and then we'll make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. In the interim, then we will probably have workshops to talk about a lot of things that all of you have brought up. But the basic proposal right now was to use the IUC and the fire, both of them 206, and basically copy those that are presently used by the towns of Silver Cliff and Westcliff. So I don't think the proposal as it stands now would be to do too much variation in those two codes. And then what we would do after that is if the Board of County Commissioners decided to move ahead, then they would request the planning commission to amend the county resolution. And then we would, that process would require probably more additional workshops, and then we would have a public hearing on that, and then we would come back with a recommendation, probably sometime in August, later August, and then ultimately the commissioners would make the decision on whether the amendment should happen, an amendment to the resolution. So I hope you understand the process. It's a little bit involved, but we want to get as much public input as we can. With that, does anybody have further comments? Dan?
Dan Fox. And then Dan Bubis, and then this girl.
Just something to maybe research is how many homes have been destroyed by floods in Custer County in the past 50 years? You know, does anybody, would that information be out there anywhere?
Bill probably would know down in Wetmore area.
Down there.
Okay, and yeah, just kind of curious, and we're talking about all this flood stuff, and is there an issue with floods in Custer County? And speaking of Wetmore, since the fire, has there been, we've got some pretty good rains, has there been some issues with flooding down there? Major flooding as opposed to, I know, probably some minor stuff, which would happen anyway. I'm just kind of...
Not quite.
Not quite, but so with some inch-and-a-half rains or something, there's been some pretty good thunderstorms on that fire, am I correct? I've seen some storms go through.
The largest storm was 6,200.
Okay, so it could
And
be...
it caused exceptionally high water.
Right, which, understandable, yeah, okay. Just kind of curious on, you know, what the flood situation really is here, because building something to code, a flood will still take it out. You know, that will happen. All right, thank you.
We have a lady over here who wants to speak.
Hi. Elizabeth Harmon, County Road 255. My husband and I both moved up here about 3 years ago. We were drawn to Custer County due to the lack of building codes. My grandfather was a contractor throughout El Paso County, and when he was in California, his experience with inspectors and my personal experience with these inspectors has not been favorable. They take a lot of time out of your building projects. They put personal feelings into determining on if they're going to pass these inspections. My husband and I can't speak on insurance. I can't speak on how it's going to affect mortgages, because my husband and I bought our property outright. Every stick of materials that go into our house, we buy outright. They're not paid for by a lender. So I have no knowledge on how it's going to affect anyone else. But I do know that these building codes are going to cause a hassle that my family's not looking for. We're not afraid that our building is not going to pass code. Actually, it's the exact opposite. We're just afraid of the added expense and the hassle in the dealing with the inspectors and all of that that's going to delay our building. Since coming up here, I have heard a lot of different things go back and forth about how our county commissioners do not listen to us and how they really just make up their own mind. I prior have always thought very high of Mr. Printz, and his proposal to this is based on safety, but yet I have yet to see him bring anything to the table actually proving that putting in codes is going to improve safety for all of us. It might for a couple, but not everyone is going to build a shoddy house. Not everyone is going to have bad workmanship. It does happen. We're just not those people. Speaking on a personal note, again, I have heard that our commissioners do not speak with us, do not take into what we say into consideration. I did not personally believe that until this evening. There was a personal outburst, regardless of whatever personal feelings are between people. This is not the forum for that. And really and honestly, I know we're not supposed to address the audience, but Jay, a shame on you, honey. I'm very disappointed in your behavior.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'd like to thank you for your comment, and I agree with you. I probably was out of line I'm very tired of one person taking things out of context, and I was probably inappropriate. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'd like to thank you for bringing this. I brought this in front because it was a concern that I had as a commissioner. I respect 99.9% of the people. Plus, minus, it's fine. If it's not going to happen, it's fine. I feel it's my job to bring it in front, and I want to thank you for taking it seriously and deciding whether it's something we should move forward with or not. And if it's not, that's fine also. You know, about 93% of the counties in the United States have a building code. Less than 10% in Colorado do not have one. All of those are on the Eastern Plains, lots of farmland. So somebody thinks it's necessary, but if we don't, that's fine. We've lived for a long time without it. We've been in business since 1876, this county. And we haven't had a building code yet. I suspect we're going to do just fine without one. It's a concern I brought. I really appreciate you taking it seriously. I respect the folks who are opposed to this. That's certainly your opinion. And frankly, a lot of it I agree with. More government is not good. Safety is important, though, and that's what I'm concerned about. So, ma'am, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate the committee doing this.
Thank you, Jay. Dan?
So I've already used my 6 minutes up, so I don't really want to talk about building codes. What I would ask is that the Planning Commission continue to have meetings at night, so that those of us who are working during the daytime can come. So I would ask you to consider, I know that some of your meetings are bound to be in the daytime, I get that, but I'd appreciate it if we had an opportunity for some night meetings as well.
Good, thank you.
I'll second that.
In the back, please.
Hi, my name is Glenda Marie Lesser-Wiles. It's a big mouthful. Sorry about that. And I'm at 1603 Keepsake Loop. When this whole thing started, one of the first questions I've asked, and I've still not really gotten an intelligent answer to, is why we even needed the building codes. They said it was for our health and our safety. Okay, so how many people are sick because we didn't have the building codes? How many people's roofs fell down on them? I mean, I haven't heard of any roofs falling in anybody. I haven't heard of anybody's houses, electrical fires starting or any of that. We do have codes already from the state for the plumbing, the septic, and the fire, and all of that already. You have to get permits and all of that to do a well, and make sure that there's so much space between the well and the septic systems and all of that for health. That's already in place here. So I don't really understand why we need more building codes and more regulation that is going to be harder for families and people to come here and build. I've been a Colorado native all of my life. My parents are both born here in Colorado. I was born in Longmont. I lived half of my life out in Burlington and Rye, in places that there's no building codes to this day out there. We all live happy for a couple hundred years now. Hasn't been any for hundreds of years. Nothing was broken, but now we've got to fix something that was never broken. I'm sorry. I'm against the building codes, and I don't see a problem with sending it to the public for a vote either. Other than there's a lot that won't be able to vote on it, even though they're homeowners or have property in the county. My home itself is also co-owned with a daughter and a grandson. Neither are here as voters. But so, I mean, there'd be 2 votes in my house for no that aren't going to get registered, not just mine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, Lorraine Mosquito. I live up on CR 172.
Just speak up, please.
I live up on 172, County Road 172, Lorraine Mosquito. I'm one of those people that live in a house that has no codes, and I'm here to tell you it's a fire hazard, I was told, because the floor between, the buffer zone between the 2 floors, there is none. They cut it all away with my wood stove. And all the windows leak, the winds are atrocious, and I just want to let you know, I am one of those people that live in a house that had no building codes. My wellhead sits under my front porch, so if anything happens to my well, it has to be ripped off so it can be fixed. So I'm here to tell you that I don't believe in government getting all up in your business, but I do believe that we need some basic codes to keep safe housing for us. And this was a house that was passed on, so, I don't know what inspections, the whole thing. So I just really believe that there should be some basic codes to keep the families that move into these houses in the county safe, and they know what they're getting into when they buy or even rent or lease. Thank you. Pardon me? I'm sorry. Was that a question? Oh.
Something I meant to mention earlier, and it might, have something to do with what she just said, but I believe every real estate contract in the state of Colorado has an inspection period in it. So you have the chance to do all the inspections of the home that you may be purchasing to find out that it meets your needs and wants and does not have issues attached to it. So I believe that's, another state law that's already in place to help protect people from this kind of workmanship, which is an inspection. You just got to walk away from something if you don't like it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Candy Sage again. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has made a statement tonight. I appreciate what you said, Jay, about it not being a foregone conclusion. I really hope not. I hope this is not a decision that's been made and you're just giving us time until you put it in place. So thank you, Jay, for saying that. And I hope that as a planning commission that you all do your research as far as you can and take into consideration what the public wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Planning Commission, I know Bill spoke a little bit. Anybody else have anything to say? I didn't expect much. It's about the last thing. Did you see something, Jackie?
Yeah, right in the back.
Oh. Right.
Good morning, You may sit here until you come up with some questions.
My name is Brian Woods, live in West Cliff, Colorado. All right, first thing I'd like to ask, is there any electrical engineers here? No? How about a mechanical engineer? Structural?
Yes.
No structural engineers?
Yes.
Oh, here she is. Okay, and civil engineers? Okay. All right, I just pulled a permit in Fremont County. It was 1,200 square feet. Engineering on the foundation was $650. The cost of the permit was $2,800, and that was also including the taxes already. So the idea of this whole thing about the permit costing $1 million, it does not. Grandfathered in. If your house is falling apart and you need problems with it, or it's got problems, it's going to be grandfathered in? No, it's not going to be grandfathered in. You got to fix it to code. That's the way it's done. Owner builders, standard. Owner builder, if you want to build your house, build your house. That's, you pull the permit yourself. That's it. There's a few of us in the room that built quite a few homes here in the valley. And we've been called out on a few houses too, that the roofs have blown off and barns blown down, and a bunch of us, we don't even go to these jobs anymore after they call us to fix them because too many problems. But people don't understand that I've built a lot of houses here. There's a couple other guys in here that have done the same. And we've seen it. I mean, there's been houses, there's been tire houses, there's been straw bale houses, and you can build them structurally. Don't go around the corner. You want to do straw bales, you can do it. There's one up here not too far from here, and it was structurally sound. So some of these things that people are bringing up, they just, okay, you want government to not run your life. Well, you know, this is something that there's more involved here than just building a fence. It's not building a fence, it's building a house. People are inside that house. That story that's been told on the paper about the old man building the fishing cabin, that was my story. Because the old man did build the fishing cabin, it did cave in, it didn't kill anybody, but it could have. And then whose fault is that going to be? Whose shoulders is going to carry that one? For that family that gets killed in there when all that snow falls on them. So I'm not a real good public speaker, but I'll tell you like it is. Don't be foolish, come on, let's step up here. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Thank you, Brian. Any further comments? Yeah.
Again, just to follow up on that gentleman's statements, you know, what's to protect the person that has a lifelong dream to live in Custer County and wants to have a house built here? Not everybody is a contractor. Not everybody's a builder. So, you know, they don't have that experience, so they're relying on somebody else to build their house. They put their life savings into it, okay? Maybe we get a good builder, you know, comes out there and, okay, he's gonna build a great house. What about the one that, you know, the guy has a house to build, and he finds a contractor, and the contractor says, well, you know, I can cut some corners here. The guy's in New York, he won't ever see this. I'll cut out a little here, cut out a little here, pocket this. You know, there's no inspections. There's no checks for that poor individual that wants to put his life savings into Custer County and then have a house built that he has, you know, yeah, could he fly out every weekend and look at it himself? But if he's not a contractor, he's not a structural engineer, he's not a builder, how's he really going to know without depending on somebody he's hired? So basic codes just helps protect people that want to come to our county and live here. And it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
My last time, I promise. I absolutely agree with the gentleman who said most houses, when people are buying them, they have an inspection. And they do, and I appreciate it. Most of them do a wonderful job. They look to see how much insulation is in the roof, if the electrical wires, when they plug in that little meter, is hooked up forward or backwards. But the things they can't check if the studs are right unless they remove the sheetrock. That can only be done as it's being built. They can't check to see if the proper roof anchors, when the hurricane anchors, the hurricane anchors are put in. They can't see that because that's blocked. So my concern is the building during the process that can't be seen once the walls are up and once the paint are up. That's what I'm concerned about. And, you know, I just feel we as a society have a duty to protect people from themselves, from shoddy builders. Most of them are not. I spoke to every builder I spoke to, and I spoke to a lot of them before I came here, said, I already built the code. As long as it's not a Fremont code, Fremont County has a very restrictive one, and that's why I suggested that you folks look at the 2006 code, because it's safety without the overbearing restrictions. So when I mentioned that, even to every aspect of builders, I'm talking about big corporations, small people, Amish builders, everybody I talked to, they all said, oh, the 2006, piece of cake, I already do it. And that's wonderful, because then you get a piece of paper that says, an independent set of eyes watch this being built. And even if you're out there every day, unless you're a builder, you might go, I don't know, is that right or not? Those are the kind of things I have a concern about. So I'm in favor of it, but I certainly understand if it's not something that's right for this county at this time. Thank you. And I'm done. I won't talk anymore.
Any further comments? Yeah.
Wrong side.
I've been trapped in here before. Some people never get out of here.
Name and address.
Let's see. Well, I'm going to meet at 9. I'm Kip Shy, and I live at 65 East Calcite Court in the greater Westcliff, Silver Cliff metropolitan area. I've already used up 6 seconds. Dallas, I think, made the most important point that I've heard tonight, and that is that we need to very much separate the floodplain issue from the building code issue. Because when it comes to floodplains, I don't care what kind of house you build, it's where you build it. And the floodplains have an awful lot to do with rainfall and drainages. And we do not have FEMA mapping here. I worked all through the 70s and 80s and 90s up here, and the only flood maps we had were put out by HUD, and they were called the flood insurance rain maps, and we were able to use those to determine floodplains. A square mile on those maps was 1 inch. It was a postage stamp. So if you had 1 acre inside of that 640 inside of that postage stamp, it was pretty difficult to talk about what kind of floodplain you were in. Now FEMA took over that mapping. They did not accept those maps, and they remapped all over the country, with one of the exceptions was Custer County. We didn't get mapped during that. So FEMA would have to map us in order for us to use the FEMA information. You can go get a flood certificate right now, and the surveyor will go do a flood certificate for you. If you're in a FEMA community, they have cross-sections on all the drainages to work from that give them an elevation. They can transfer that elevation to the elevation of your floor level in your proposed house, and as long as you're 1 foot above that flood elevation, you can get flood insurance. If you're not, then you have an opportunity at that point to move the location of your house or to build it up a little bit and be able to get out of the floodplain. If you're not in a mapped county, the only way that you can get it done is to hire a surveyor to go do cross-sections in whatever drainage you're closest to, and then provide the mapping data to an engineer who then analyzes all of that data in relation to the entire drainage basin that you're in. So whatever is above you in elevation that drains into that drainage, that entire area would have to be calculated for the maximum flow in a 100-year flood. So then an engineer does their calculations, they determine what the flood elevation is, surveyor goes back out, checks the site to make sure whether it's within those boundaries or not. I checked with the surveyor just a week ago. If you have a FEMA mapped community, then it's an approximate cost between $1,500 and $3,000 to do a flood certification when you have the FEMA data. When you don't have the FEMA data and you involve an engineer in it, it just about doubles that cost. So we haven't talked too much about cost in terms of the floodplain, and that's a really big issue to talk about is that flood certification. The other thing is that when you want the FEMA, it's great, you want FEMA to grace your study that you do in an area that they haven't mapped, you have to send all your data to FEMA. Then they analyze it and send it back to you. And that turnaround time during the peak of the building season is anywhere between 2 weeks and a month. So before you can even determine the location where you want to build, based on the floodplain, you may be having to wait a month after you've picked your house site location. And in a building season that lasts, 120 days, Dan? Is that a pretty good guess? Depends on how fast Dan is. Dan's not very fast anymore. But it's the idea that it's another delay and another expense for the flood. So we really need to separate those two issues. The building code is one thing. That's how you build the house and the quality of the construction. Floodplain is a totally separate issue. It's where you build the house. So I think we need to be thinking that we can accomplish one at a time if that's the choice of people. we need to have a lot more discussion. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Yackley. I live at 245 Blue Grove Circle, and thank the Planning Commission for the opportunity to speak here. I'm not versed on the flood issue. Where I live, if it floods, I'm going to be building an ark because I'm pretty high up. On the fire issue, I think that is an area that concerns all of us because wildfires don't just contain themselves to property lines. I know that my insurance company, before I was able to get insurance, sent an inspector out to check for fire mitigation, etc. And if I had not met it, then I'd be working to do that. If the county decides to adopt a building code, my recommendation would be is they look at grandfathering in existing structures, and not even on a transfer, because even El Paso County doesn't require changes to homes on transfers unless you're doing an addition or something like that. Additional structures or new construction would be where the focus should be if a building code's adopted. I have seen the impact of catastrophes in areas of the world where no structural building requirements are there. I spent 41 years in the Army all around the world, and quite a bit in Afghanistan, Middle East, other places where there are no building requirements whatsoever, and the catastrophes that can happen when no one's looking to see what's being done. And we talked a lot about stud placement and all that, but the biggest concern would be foundations, etc., those things that you can't see. Even a house inspector can't see those. So it's just something to think about if the Planning Commission goes in that direction. We talked about what's an acceptable structure. Opinions will vary. Different builders will vary. A building code at least puts some minimum standard there that all would have to comply with. It's not the solution to everything, but it does at least give some comfort to the person that comes after. I do believe in independence, having built my own home here with help, but we did build it to the building code because it is my home, and so it is structurally sound. I think there should be provisions for alternative structures, whether they're tire houses, straw houses, etc. But once again, they should be built for the safety of the people that live in it and for those that come beyond. Because as many people said, we've been here since 1872 or so. Houses have changed hands many times in there. I'm sure we'll be here for 100 years more. Houses will continue to change hands. We already have codes for things: electric, plumbing, septic. You have to get a well permit. Talking about a code for lighting, dark skies. But on the basic structure that if it collapses could be catastrophic, we just kind of seem to want to hope that the goodwill of builders and then buyer beware if not. I say if there's no building code, people need to choose their builders wisely and be knowledgeable, but then once again, not everybody has the time or the abilities to do that. I thank the commission once again, and that's all.
Thanks, Steve. Other comments? One thing I want to emphasize, did you have a comment, sir?
Yeah.
Jason Coleman, 1426 County Road 130. I'm a licensed soil technician here in the valley, and so that means the first person that the homeowner, a new homeowner, property owner talks to in the valley is either Jackie or Elizabeth, and then I usually end up being second or one of the other three soil technicians in the valley. And in this past week alone, I've talked to 4 homeowners, and every one of them said the only reason they bought here was because of the lack of regulations. So enforcing this building code, I have a huge feeling is going to really cut down on the economic development of the valley. Another thing I was thinking on the math tonight, I heard one gentleman say that, what was it, in the past 15 years, an average of 40 houses have been built. And that was estimating on the high side. I'm doing the math, and like he said, a $100,000 employee between fuel mileage, benefits, wages, whatnot, divide that by the 40, you have $12 $2,500 worth of cost. That's far from the $800 to $1,000. And even if you cut that in half at $50,000 on 40 houses a year, you're still looking at $1,250. That, to me, that's just disinformation. The whole idea of fear to implement regulations, I'd rather leave that to the East Coast and West Coast. Right here in the Valley, we don't need to fear our citizens into regulations. And another thing on the regulations, as a septic contractor, 5 years ago, a septic system on average was $3,000 to $4,000. A year and a half, 2 years ago, the state decided to implement their own regulations. Now an average septic system is $6,000 to $7,000. I mean, dang near 100% increase, and I'm not saying the building code would do that, but it's going to be a lot more cost than $800 to $1,000, and I'm just curious where the money's coming from. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Other comments? No.
I'd like to just make a request of the board. I would ask that you go back and review the work that the Building Code Committee did back in 08 and 09 and look hard at the report that we generated. I think that most of what we found and reported on back then still has credence today. Thank you.
Any further comments? One thing I want to emphasize is that the Planning Commission is an advisory group, and we operate, the BOCC basically gives us our guidance. And so right now we're in this mode of that I outlined earlier, where we would have hearings and meetings and workshops and what have you. And so, but I also brought up that we have this issue that's just come up about potential ballot, and I appreciate you people weighing in. So, if the commissioners decide that they want us to go with a ballot, all they have to do is tell us, and we will stop this, and then we'll wait until November ballot. So we don't determine that. We'll do what the commissioners ask us to do. And I think that's an important point. Are there any further comments? Shannon, we're going to make it before 9. That's good, huh? Bill?
I'm going to go home.
Okay, thanks again for everyone.
Second.
Thank you very much.